Hi, it's Rob here with another video, and as you can see today, it's a very, very special occasion. I don't have any Tom, Dick or Harry on my channel, but who I do have is my son Alex. So me and Alex have been chatting, and I wanted to do a video with him. And Alex is someone who's sort of influenced me, certainly over the last 10 years, into some of the music that I'm really into. And vice versa. When Alex was growing up, I was influencing him into the music he's into. So I've spoke about Alex on my channel before, but not in great detail. So I'll hand you over to Alex, who can maybe give you a bit of background, and then he can show sort of the first artist that I influenced him with.
Yeah, cheers, Dad. It's been a long time coming. I remember in that Yates's all those many years ago.
Oh yeah,
where you brought up the first idea of us doing the video together.
yeah.
So it's good to finally be doing that.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited to do this. Like you said, I think our entire, well, certainly a large part of our relationship is formed on your love of music, my love of music, and us showing each other the music that we're into and sharing that. Certainly, definitely in my very formative years, kind of from, I'd say probably about the ages of 10 until I left home. So I left home so I'd been 18 to move to Sheffield.
Yeah.
And when I moved to Sheffield, I think it probably switched from then on. Would you agree with that? In terms of kind of from 10 to me being 18, it was you influencing me. But I think when I moved out, I think that was when I started to influence you a bit more, because that was like when I was at university, I had a radio show. So maybe you were just actively listening to just music I was purely discovering. And yeah, I always keep up with the videos, like everything. But yeah, no, I'm excited to be doing this. And we can hopefully share some musical memories that we have had throughout the years.
Nice one.
So I think for me, I would be remiss if I didn't include Paul Weller in some way, shape, or form. I would say that My Ever Changing Moods is probably my favourite Paul Weller song of any ilk, jam, style council, solo stuff. I remember very distinctly, I think it was 2006, so I'd have been turning 11, and I got for my birthday a CD, Hit Parade. And I'd just done some research then, and it came out 2 weeks before my birthday. And I remember opening that, and I remember, obviously this was before streaming. And while I was on playing games online, I just had that one CD pretty much on a loop, I would say. And I always kind of went to Beat Surrender, all the Style Council stuff, Shout to the Top, My Ever Changing Moods. And I think, obviously, I'd heard the jam before. You played a lot of the jam kind of in the car and obviously around the house. But I think for me, there was just something about the Style Council. I was just more drawn to it. And I'd say I pretty much, every single one of the singles I love. And even now, I'll just throw on Shout It to the Top or My Ever Changing Moods. I just love it.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you remember, very much kind of once I decided that, and I think you might have clocked it, but I had a hand-me-down poster that, from their mini LP of the two of them stood on a bridge in a river, over a river.
Right. Yeah.
And I had that up on my wall. It was huge. It wasn't just it was double the size of what a normal poster would be.
Yeah.
And that was just so, I think it was probably the first band or artist that you showed me that I loved, probably. So yeah.
Yeah, that Hit Parade, that for people who don't know, that was like a compilation with sort of Paul Weller, the Jam and the Style Council, wasn't it? All on one.
Yeah, it was CD. It was about 25 tracks, and it was like a third, but it wasn't chronological. It was all mixed. No. So you'd have obviously Going Underground, then you'd have maybe Changing Man, and then you'd have Eating Rifles, then you'd have Beat Surrender. It was all mixed, and it's just like the best Paul Weller songs up until that point. playlist just shuffled. That's
Yeah.
basically what it was. And it really made me, I think, maybe when, obviously you were around at the time, you have those distinct phases. But for me, just having them all shuffled together, I really, for whatever reason, I was still just drawn to the Style Council.
Yeah, because it's always a bit weird, isn't it? For me, I was obviously a massive fan of the Jam, and then they split up, and then the Style Council. But it happened. It was while it was happening for me. Whereas you wake up one day and I give you a CD and it's got everything on it. So that's, there's a few artists like that maybe you're going to show, and that's such a difference. And it's sometimes a challenge for people who are older. I think maybe that's why they sort of stick to the music they love, because a lot of people, once they get past 30, they don't really there might be now and again they get into new music, but for someone like you, new music at that time was maybe obviously some of the artists you're going to show on this video.
And I'd say before this, I'd say probably I have two very distinct first memories of music, and the first one is the Beach Boys. I would say the very best of the Beach Boys. You just absolutely rinsed that CD in the car. I remember it would always be, your go-to line would be, "Oh, it's just perfect for a sunny day." That's just what you'd say every single time we played it. Barbaran. I just remember like being, like 6, 7, and that is like the perfect song for like doing the school run. And I remember James as well from growing up. So, but then I don't have any Beach Boys or James records. I'm sure you do. So but I'd say my Ever Changing Moods had to be there.
Yeah, Paul Weller. Yeah. Yeah.
What about you?
I wasn't sure whether you were going to show it. I know you've seen him live, haven't you?
Yeah,
you saw him at Glastonbury, didn't you?
Yeah, it was on Saturn's Pattern.
Right. Yeah.
Tail end. So it was. I think it was my first Glastonbury, 2028. No, not 2018. It's been 2016. I think it was.
So obviously, when I show things you influenced me, it's going to be newer artists. So the first band I want to talk about is quite funny, really, because Alex had been going on about this band for like a couple of years, and I just like I just wasn't interested, because I just thought the band had a stupid name, and they kept bringing multiple albums out. So I remember saying to you, why don't they just bring one album out a year that's good instead of like 4 or 5 that are, average? But I was saying all that, I'd never even listened to them. No. I was just being a parent, But then I remember, I think it was when, so the band in question is, so who's this band, Alex?
King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
Yeah, so I'll just show a few. So I've got quite a lot. Quarters.
Oh, Quarters, brilliant.
Yeah, Paper Mache.
Oh, Paper Mache, Dream Balloon, yeah.
How many albums have you got by King Gizzard?
I'd say I've got everything from album 1 to about 2019. I'd say that's when I fell off. So, just maybe the 25 albums in that time. Yeah. I think, because we went to go and see them, didn't we? Just before COVID happened. We saw them on the Infest the Rat's Nest tour. And I think that might have been my last album. I think I've got a couple in between then and now.
No, because when I came down in November, there was a knock on the door. And the 3 albums got delivered, and they were all King Gizzard albums.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, I think Infest the Rat's Nest, from the very first album, I think I've got everything between start and end. But then I've got those 3 random albums that came out about a year ago. Changes, Laminate Denim, and...
So what happened with King Gizzard is, I think it was Fishing for Fishes when that came out. And I played that, I bought it, played it a lot, and really enjoyed it. So when I did my best of, must have been 2019, I think I had it like number 4, number 5. But then Infest the Rat's Nest came out same year, which is like, is that doom metal or
Yeah,
really
like
heavy, isn't it?
yeah,
But I still quite enjoyed it. But I'll give King Gizzard like credit. What they've done is they've made me appreciate sort of prog, heavier music, if you like, because I was listening to like King Gizzard and I'm thinking, I know they do like jazz and they do all sorts of folk, but they do quite a lot of sort of harder albums, and
yeah,
I'm enjoying them. And I'm thinking, well, if I'm enjoying this, surely I should be enjoying, Rush and bands like that.
yeah.
Sort of investigate music that I used to really slag off. So yeah, it's. I don't know about you, whether you just do you ever listen to any sort of prog or anything from the? Because I never played any prog, did I? When we were growing up, when you were growing up.
No, no. I think the hardest it got was, and this is almost like a separate musical memory, is I just very distinctly remember the School of Rock. I remember quite maybe after probably about 12, 13, I thought like I got into like Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, and but that wasn't what you were into. So I think that kind of phased out after about 6 months, and that's when I got more into like the kind of music that you're into, alternative. But yeah, no, I'd never really had like a really heavy rock phase. I mean, there certainly are artists out there that I appreciate that are a lot heavier, but I think King Gizzard, what they do so well is, like you say, there's kind of no strings attached, is there? It's just just some of them are more jamming sessions. Some of them are psychedelic. Some of them are very proggy. Some of them are folky. Instrumentation is just all over the place. Vocals are all over the place. I've seen them. I think I've seen them 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And yeah, it certainly was, because it was like, when I was at uni, we'd catch up every couple of months, wouldn't we? You'd come over and a new King Gizzard album had come out in the meantime. And I remember you, slagging it off, but they're so good. They're just so good. I mean, it is hard to keep up with them now.
Yeah.
But
well, that puts a lot of people off. There's a few people sort of in the vinyl community. They won't go anywhere near them. And I understand that, because I sort of got on board maybe a third into their catalogue. But if you're not into them and you start now, then where do you go? What's your go-to album? It's difficult to say this is your go-to album for King Gizzard, because what are you into? If you're into sort of folk or jazzy, there's certainly elements for you. But if you're into harder stuff, there's definitely stuff for you. But when we went to see them live, I couldn't believe how good they were. As you say, it was just before COVID, wasn't it? Yeah. And the sound was it was one of my favourite. It was nice because obviously we were together and went to it as well. But yeah, they were so good live as well.
Yeah, I would say anyone who's unsure of where to start with King Giz, I would say Nonagon Infinity is probably where to start, because it's got slightly quieter moments, it's got the heavier moments, it's got experimental moments, and as well, it's got a few like gimmicks in it because it's like a never-ending loop. But that doesn't take away from the album. I'd say that is probably their most successful album. Some really good music videos as well. Shall I show the next one?
Yeah, go on then. Let's have a laugh.
Right, so I'd say probably the next one is I'll probably show the Smiths Meet His Murder. So I would say for a time, the Smiths were my favourite band. Certainly kind of year 9, so I was like probably 13, 14, 15. I would say the Smiths were my favourite band, like no questions asked. And for whatever reason, kind of everyone would always go, or a best of, or Queen is Dead. I feel like people are kind of like they're all into like the singles, or they're into Queen is Dead. But for me, there is just something about Meet His Murder that I'm just more drawn to. I think Headmaster's Ritual, maybe just because I'm a teacher, I think I just love that. What she said, Rush Home Ruffians. I think it's just, to me, this is everything about the Smiths that I love. And I remember, kind of when you probably noticed I was into the Smiths, you play more songs like How Soon Is Now and You know, like There Is a Light, and I think they were just the first band I properly like, just because obviously I love the Style Council, but there was something special about the Smiths when I first discovered them. I think as I've grown up, I've kind of almost fallen out of love with them a bit. Yeah, I'm not really sure why, but I do remember so distinctly that period of my life.
Yeah.
And you kind of facilitated that because you just had everything already. And because unlike Paul Weller, he's still releasing new music now. Whereas the Smiths, you've got 5 years, that's it.
Yeah.
So, and each album came pretty much one after the other, didn't it? 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. So maybe it wasn't as much of like a sacrilege to you to kind of, you know, go between all the different albums.
Yeah.
What were your memories of the Smiths at the time? Because I guess that was probably when you were kind of in your 20s.
Yeah, so I was like 19. I think I was just 19 when This Charming Man came out. So when they were on Top of the Pops, you know, and he's got his flowers in his back pocket and
a hearing aid.
Yeah, and his shirt undone and stuff. And it spoke before, like, because the Jam had split. We were looking for like a new band, really, you know, to sort of pin your hat on. And the Smiths were just perfect. To me, they're like the soundtrack to the 1980s, because they kind of started in 83, and was it about 88 when they finally split?
Yeah, I think 87, something like that. Yeah,
87, 88, yeah. And the singles were just coming out every 3 months. There was a single coming out. Quite a few singles that were on albums, which was a good thing.
Yeah.
B-sides, you were hoping that the B-side wasn't on the album. In a lot of cases, you were excited about the picture sleeves on the singles. Who's going to be on the cover this time?
Yeah, what's the colour scheme going to be? Yeah.
T-shirts. You know, you go into Manchester and there'd be a dozen Smiths T-shirts to choose from. So, you know, also because, I mean, they're from Manchester, so there's been so much great music come out of Manchester, hasn't there? But, you know, it doesn't matter where they come from. I'd be a fan of the Smiths. But it just so happens they come from the greatest city in the world. So it's just perfect, isn't it?
Yeah. No, and I remember as well, there were one day, I was probably in like year 10, year 11. And, you know, we'd go on our excursions in the car and you were like, let's go to Salford Lads Club.
Oh, yeah.
And we must have been looking for it. You'd think we were tourists and we didn't live in Manchester. We were looking for it about 45 minutes. And then we rocked up and there was like this gang of, you know, like hoodies, so to speak.
Yeah.
And we just chickened out of actually going up to it. We just stood at the other end of the street, just looking at it. We're like, right, off we go.
Yeah, there were a load of like scallies there, weren't they?
Yeah.
I think they were like, you know, intimidating people because people wanted to go up and, you know, tourists want to go and take the picture. So we ended up not getting our picture took there, didn't we?
I know.
Well, we couldn't find it. Remember, because there's that dual carriageway. We could see it.
And it's in the middle of a housing estate, and there's no way of getting onto the housing estate.
Yeah.
Apart from this one road, which is like in the middle of the dual carriageway. And obviously, this is probably what, 2010, something like that, maybe 2011.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not looking on my phone or anything. You're just like, oh, it's here somewhere. So we're going down an alley, and then
I know.
Yeah, and then like I say, 45 minutes later, we actually found it. So, like, that's a very distinct memory for me.
There's a lot of sort of people in America who follow my channel who are really into the Smiths, and they've not, you know, obviously the image of Salford's Lads Club it's one of the iconic images, isn't it, when you think of the Smiths? And I'm sure they'd love to, you know, they'd come all the way from LA to go there. They'd turn up and they'd think, I'm not going outside there. It's well dodgy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was certainly, like, now you almost think it should have like a blue plaque or something outside it. Or...
I think there might be something. I think there might be something now. I don't know. Right, do you want me to show some?
Yeah, fire ahead.
Right, so another band that you introduced me to are Squid.
Oh yeah, what a band!
Yeah. So this is another group that we've seen together, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
we saw them at
this is a
Albert
record
Hall.
store day. Have you got this?
No, I've not got that. The only Squid I've got is I've got that EP and
You got that?
yeah, I've got that. Yeah, that 10-inch. Yeah,
Because you got a new album out, haven't you?
yeah, they have. I've not given it a listen yet. Oh, Monolith.
No, there's a few people like I've heard giving it positive reviews. So I think not last year, the year before, when I ranked my albums, I had Squid as #1. So and we went to see them. Was that? It wasn't last year, was it? Was it the? It got cancelled, didn't it, because of COVID? And
yeah, it got cancelled and pushed back, and then I think was it because it was while I was living in Sheffield, so that would have been 2021, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like May 2021, but we saw him at Albert Halls, and I remember saying to you, like, oh yeah, it should be pretty chill. Maybe when Houseplants comes on, everyone might get a bit crazy, but it was like second one, and it was like everyone was moshing out. It was just great. I just jumped in there.
Yeah, it was mental, wasn't it? It was really good. But I remember you remember buying this?
Yeah, Bear Tree Records in Sheffield. And I remember I bought it, and you were like, "Oh, what's that?" Because you were just drawn to the sleeve. I was like, "Oh, this band called Squid, and you know they're all right. I really like them. Play them on because I used to have a radio show. I was like, oh, probably play them on that." And then I think you were trying to listen to it in the shop, but in Bear Tree Records, it can play some absolute stinkers in there, and you couldn't hear it because of obviously the music playing. And I think by the time you got home, you messaged me to say, why didn't you make me buy that?
Yeah.
Like you just said, why did you not make me buy it? Because it was like, what, a tenner? Yeah, no, I remember, I mean, Squid are just, I think they're the kind of band that if I was kind of 15, 16, similar to the Smiths, I'd just love them. I'd just be obsessed with them. And like I said, I think I played them on the radio show.
Tell people a little bit about your radio show, because you sort of mentioning it, but you've not sort of give people a bit of a background on that. How did that start?
Yeah, so when I was at uni, I was doing maths, and after about a year or so, I was thinking, I just want to get involved in doing a society or something like that. And I had some friends who were doing the radio, I had some friends who were doing TV, newspaper, and I thought, well, newspaper is a bit too much of a commitment, and I'm not much of a wordsmith. And video, I kind of was just like, it just seems like a massive effort, just like editing videos, and I just couldn't be bothered with it. Whereas radio, there was just something about it where I thought, doing it live, just there and then, capsule of time for an hour, playing some good music. So I was part of Forge Radio, which is the University of Sheffield's student radio station, and I had a new music show with a good friend Benji for about 2 years. And then when he left, because I stayed on for another year after that, I just had a solo show. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. And I think through doing that, I probably discovered more new music as being a student at uni than I have ever since leaving, because it forced me to listen to new music. So I probably would have ended up hearing about Squid because they are so popular now. But I remember going to a Glastonbury like maybe 5 years ago, and people being like, oh, Squid are doing a secret set. And then, 2 years later, they're playing pretty far up on the park stage. But yeah, no, I remember, hearing you sing their praises, and that made me feel good, like thinking, oh, I influenced him there with that one.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they're quite similar in a way to sort of King Gizzard, but they've only done 2 albums, so it's hard to sort of pin them down. But on the new album, you can sort of hear a bit of a change, but not too drastic. I think they're kind of certainly a band to keep your eye on over the, it's weird to say over the next sort of decade or so, but
they're that kind of band where I think they are quite experimental. They're not, they're not wanting to they haven't just got a sound and they're like, we're sticking to that. So they should evolve kind of with every album release, and that makes it more exciting. It's not just, sounds, what you see is what you get. Okay, next one.
Go on then.
Okay, so my next one is going to be Joy Division. So Unknown Pleasures. So I would say that you kind of mentioned Joy Division, but I don't think they were kind of a band that you went to show me.
No.
But I remember when I was in year 10, year 11, so I'd have been 15, 16, you bought me the book of Touching from a Distance.
Right.
For my birthday or Christmas.
Yeah.
And I remember I just read it at school just all the time. And it was off the back of that, then Control, the film, came out.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing it in bits. I think you might have watched it at home, and I'd seen like little bits of it. And I think I remember you like telling me a bit about Ian Curtis, and you know, that went on to talking about New Order, because I've definitely heard of New Order, but I feel like you've not really given much attention to Joy Division. But you got me that book, Touching from a Distance, and that kind of opened the door then to almost, you showed me the artist before you showed me the music in a way. And I'd say, unlike the Smiths, where I kind of grew out of them, Joy Division kind of influenced so much of the music that I like now, like kind of post-punk, like a bit dark, and like, you know, seeing it. I remember on BBC Four they'd show like Old Grey Whistle Test and stuff like that, and Top of the Pops too.
Yeah,
and you know, they'd show like Blue Monday performance of Top of the Pops too, and kind of those little anecdotes that you would tell me about, you know, the instruments weren't even plugged in and stuff like that. Or no, not that they weren't plugged in, that they like played absolutely everything live, and that's why it sounded horrible. You know, and those memories of you telling these little anecdotes about music without necessarily just showing me the music, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, because I'm such like a music fan. Like, I'm a big football fan as well, and you know, I tried, and you weren't that interested in football, but you were interested in music. So once you got to a certain age, you just started to, and it's, you know, you've got good taste, haven't you? You've got good taste like me, so it rubbed off on it. But I didn't realise, you know, it was like subconscious really. If I'm just telling you something, or because we had a jukebox, didn't we? And we used to load the jukebox with records. So, you know, you'd learn about random records that way, wouldn't you? Because I put the jukebox on.
Yeah. And you'd be like, put on 72 and 84 and 7. And like, we queued up, wouldn't we? And and I remember like sometimes I'd just be watching telly and I'd be like thinking, oh, where's Dad? And I walk into the back and you're like taking the middles out of the records, like sat on the floor and writing the little, you know,
tickets,
A and B side tickets up to put in. And, you know, that, you know, massively influenced my music taste.
You started to work at HMV, didn't you, as well?
Yeah, so when I was at uni, I worked at HMV in Meadowhall in Sheffield. And it was just great because it was not student discount, like workers' discount.
Yeah.
And it was free delivery. So it was just dirt cheap. So you like a $4.99 single, $3.99 single, I get for like £2.50. Whereas buying that single, not working at HMV, you know, unless you're ordering it specifically to collect in store, which can be a bit of an effort, you know, you've got to pay a bit of postage on it. So I was looking then when we were trying to find some singles. I'm like, God, I've got all these like really small artists from the mid 2010s that brought out 7-inch singles.
Yeah.
I've just got them because I worked at HMV at the time.
We're going to go back to Australia.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to go back to King B Records. So what me and Alex, when I used to come over to see you, didn't I? Maybe every month, every 6 weeks when you was in Sheffield.
Yeah.
And we used to go to King B Records. And I remember you bought this album.
You mean Bear Tree Records? Bear Tree.
Oh, Bear Tree. What did I say?
King B.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, King B. That's in Manchester, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry. Yeah, Bear Tree Records. I've not been in there for ages. Obviously, not going to Sheffield, but I can remember you bought this because I like the look of the the jacket, and I think I went home, listened to it, and I think I had ordered it from Amazon pretty quickly. And this is just like, we call it like daytime disco. This it's just, I'd love to see. Have you seen the Parcels live?
No, I've not seen them. I've never. They very rarely do shows in the UK.
And I've got this as well. And I've got so this is like live.
Oh,
in
well,
the
that's good.
studio. And then I've got the second studio album came out. I think that came out in 2021. So yeah, I just absolutely love the Parcels. They've got that Daft Punk production, haven't they? Now bit of a Nile Rodgers feel about them. I don't know if you kind of remember sort of at home me liking disco music, but
yeah, absolutely. I'd say that I was very tempted to pick some disco out, but then because I remember I think my love of disco soul music does come from you.
Yeah.
Because even I'd say, if ever I'm going out and seeing a DJ and stuff like that, I'm always drawn to, the more disco tracks that they play.
Do you remember when we did the Rapper's Delight as a karaoke?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was...
Was that Suzanne's 40th or something?
I can't remember, but doing the full, 15-minute version?
We did and it stopped, and we carried on doing Rapper's Delight without.
I think it was like the abridged version that was about 9 minutes. But then I'm like, no, they've not done this bit, and I'm like, we had to keep going.
Yeah, it was brilliant that way, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know that's not sort of strictly disco, is it? But it's kind of that era, if you like. So, I mean, I've noticed you do like sort of a lot of sort of dance. You do like a lot of dance music now, don't you? It's sort of probably one of your main sort of loves music artists.
Yeah.
What artists are you into now, sort of dance?
So I'd say electronic music is like electronic disco-y dancey is probably my favourite genre. Like that alongside with like post-punk, those two. So I'd say like the perfect in between of that is LCD Sound System. So I'd say LCD Sound System are probably my favourite band of all time. And then probably now it's like, I'm into a lot of DJs, like there's like Peggy Goo. She released some really good stuff. Floating Points I really like. Some recent Aphex Twin stuff has been pretty good. And like there's a lot of DJs, like there's a guy, a DJ called Ross from Friends. He's really good. These are all like kind of DJs and artists that I've seen, in London or in Sheffield, at dingy warehouses. That's obviously a very different gig going experience to King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard or Squid. But I'd say it's like that, just like raw energy that's in the room.
Have you got now your fourth one out?
So my fourth artist is Arcade Fire.
All right.
Did you have any inkling that I'd pick this?
I didn't. I was like, people watching this. At the start of the video, he said, "Do you want me to tell you?" And I said, "No, let's make it a surprise." Yeah. So we've got a few memories, haven't we, of them?
When the Suburbs came out, I remember you went to see them live.
Yeah.
I remember you really liking like Ready to Start, and you were playing it, and I just wasn't interested at all.
No.
There was just something about it.
You blanked them, didn't you? Because I liked them. But I forgot about this. There was a phase. If I said a band was good, Alex was like not interested because he was being my son, and you wanted to discover your own music, didn't you?
Yeah, so I'd have been like 15 at the time. So I remember that that was when I was starting to kind of like, because I was in a band, and like I remember.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about that, Alex. You haven't mentioned that.
So I was in a band called Wilson. There's some in the deep vaults of YouTube. There will be some live performances on there, and kind of that's when I started to, get into music that a lot of my mates were into, like Everything, Foals, Two Door Cinema Club, Klaxons, Arctic Monkeys. Like that's what we were all into at school, and like my group of mates. So like, and Arcade Fire were just not even part of the discussion. And I remember we watched the Brit Awards that year, and they won like either Best International Band or Best International Album, something.
Yeah.
And you were like gloating, like, "Oh yeah, they're amazing. I saw them. Yeah, I'm glad that they're getting the recognition." I just remember thinking, "Shut up, like they're not good." And then a few years go by, and then Reflector came out. Now, Reflector is produced by James Murphy, who is the brains behind LCD Sound System.
Yeah.
So immediately I'm like thinking, oh, this actually sounds pretty good. I like this. So I got into Reflector. I remember Reflector came out when I was in, I think it was tail end of college, like 2013.
Was that We Exist on that?
Yes. Yeah. So that was like kind of tail end of college, 2013. And I remember that came out and I was like, instantly, I was like, all right, I kind of get the hype now. Right. And I think obviously you've caught wind that I liked Arcade Fire. I think you got me that for Christmas one year.
I think I did like, yeah.
And then I remember I bought you tickets to see them in Birmingham, didn't I?
Yeah, we went to Birmingham, didn't we? Yeah.
Everything Now tour when they were playing they were playing in a boxing ring. And like that's just such a good memory because I kind of went like full circle from just not being interested, hating them. And then you kind of just were like, oh, this is another band that in maybe 5 years it'll like. And it turned out to be the case. And and we had some nice memories of, seeing them live.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've kind of, that Everything Now album, it got kind of, didn't get that good a reception. But I like that album.
It's almost too different from everything else. It's too different from, Suburbs. It's too different from, Neon Bible. Like Neon Bible, I remember Neon Bible, you playing that No Cars Go.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I liked that song without realising it was Arcade Fire.
Yeah.
And then when I saw it was Arcade Fire, I thought, no, I don't like it now.
Yeah, I used to do like burn CDs with like random tracks on. And I think I caught you like liking it. Do you want me to show another group?
Yes, show another one.
Right, I've got 3 here and I can only show 2. So I'm going to show this.
I almost picked that out myself. I almost picked it out. That's a Puma Rosa.
Yeah. So, and that the second album.
Yeah.
So, Puma Rosa. I remember you played them on your radio show, and I just thought the song when it Priestess.
Yes, it would have been Priestess. That was the first thing.
So it's an absolute epic, and I couldn't get enough of that track. And then you interviewed them, didn't you, on Forge? And that's on YouTube, isn't it? You interviewing Puma Rosa.
Yeah. It was Outlines Festival, it was a now de facto festival in Sheffield. It was like February, March time. And I remember because I'd seen them live at the Harley supporting a band called Gengar.
Yeah.
We got down early and we just watched them. And it was literally me, my group of mates from uni, so that's like 5 of us. And then maybe about another 10 people. That were it. And the Harley's about maybe 150 people venue. Yeah. So it was very empty. And they were just so good. I couldn't believe how good they were.
Yeah.
And then when they got announced at that festival, I thought, I'm interviewing them. I've got to, because I just love them. And I knew when I played them, you messaged me like, oh, I love that track. It's like 9 minutes. Is it?
Yeah.
Like 8 minutes? Something like that. We went to go and see them live, didn't we? Soup Kitchen.
Yeah. Then we met them after the gig. We chatted to them for a minute. They recognised you, didn't she? Is it Isabel?
Yeah. Yeah, no, we like went up because we were like on the merch stand.
Yeah.
I like kind of went up and I was like, oh, hey, like really good show. And they like looked at me. And I think it was that weird thing of like, they recognised me, but just didn't know where from. Yeah. And yeah, no, they were really good live. I mean,
they were looking at you. She was like looking at you, weren't she?
Yeah.
So I know him.
Yeah, but no, that interview though, like that was kind of the first bit of like proper press that I'd done for my radio show, interviewing them and interviewing another band called Cagoule. But yeah, introducing a lot of people to Puma Rosa. I think they're so good, and it's a shame really that they've not really released much since, have they? Those two albums.
But she's really theatrical, isn't she? When you see her live, she's got a dance background, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's almost like Kate Bush style kind of energy.
Oh, we got to the last one. It's gone so quick.
It's got dark outside. Right, so my last one is Gorillaz.
Right.
Plastic Beach. I remember when this came out, or more specifically when Stylo came out.
Yeah.
I remember you played that a lot. And I think as well, just in general, you know, there's this thing, isn't there? Blur Oasis, Blur Oasis. And I almost felt like there was an obligation to have to like Oasis in a way, and to prefer Oasis. But deep down, I'm just more of a Blur guy. For me, I think what perfectly encapsulates this is, you know, we were talking about your influencing me with like soul music and disco. And I feel like there's a bit more of an influence of that on here, you know, because you've got like Bobby Womack for Stylo. And then also Super Fast Jellyfish, because that's got Griff Rhys on it. And I know that, you know, we really like Super Furry Animals, you know, that Hey Venus album. And I remember when that was on, it was like, oh yeah, no, Super Furry Animals. And Gorillaz, I think, because before I got into Gorillaz, or before you showed me the Gorillaz, I think I just liked very just kind of blanket alternative music, indie music. Yeah. Whereas I think Gorillaz was when you showed me Gorillaz, that was me appreciating hip hop. That was me kind of tying in more like experimental music, you know, world music. I think that was when I really started to branch out of just liking indie, which I had liked up until then. And I do think it is my favorite Gorillaz album. I think it still holds up now.
Yeah, because you've seen the Gorillaz, you've seen them live, haven't you?
Yeah, I saw them on, it would have been about 2017, Manchester Arena. Right. It was on the Humans tour.
Yeah.
So they'd like kind of had this massive hiatus for, you know, like 10 years nearly.
It might have felt like an eternity for you. It's probably like 4 years, something like that.
It almost seemed like there was no sign of Gorillaz ever performing live again.
Yeah. They're quite prolific now, though. There's, you know, I mean,
Damon, you've got like the Now and the Hit Machine.
Yeah, I mean, Damon is so prolific in a way. I mean, I've got the new Blur album. There was a Gorillaz album came out last year. He always seems, he's got his finger in so many pies, hasn't he? But I think he's never bettered Plastic Beach. I think that is perfect. And that's I mean, I love Part Life, and I also like The Great Escape, though that period of Blur. But I do think that of all these, a little bit like Paul Weller, really. Paul Weller's had a few musical careers, then Damon's quite similar in a way.
They almost go a bit underappreciated sometimes. Because I think Damon Albarn always will get his plaudits for Blur, and he'll get his plaudits for kind of early Gorillaz stuff. But I think he's still bringing out banger tracks even now.
It's been a lot of bands beginning with P, hasn't there?
So
Puma Rosa,
Parcels.
So, what other two bands beginning with P do you think I might show?
It's not going to be Pulp.
No.
Or Prefab Sprout. You show enough of them on there.
No, but you didn't influence me to get into Prefab Sprout, did you?
Yes, I know. I'm just making a little joke.
All right, okay.
Put me on the spot here, Dad.
Crystal.
Oh, Palace. Oh, Palace.
Yeah.
Ah, right.
We went to see them, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
we saw them at the Harley, I think.
At the Harley, yeah. And then another band from America, beginning with P, and you and Benji used to talk about them on your show.
Oh, yeah.
Parquet Courts. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Parquet Courts.
Parquet Courts and Palace, they're both very different bands. One's from New York, aren't they? Parquet Courts, sort of scratchy, quite every album kind of changes a little bit.
I'd say they're a bit similar to like kind of energy of like Talking Heads, I'd say.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that going on. They've got that sort of late 70s American feel to them. Certainly. But I remember you and Benji talking about them on your show, and it just made me sort of listen to them and get into them. And then Palace, they're another band. I've got all their albums, and the sort of band that they really do go under the radar because they're so like a mid 2000s indie band that no one's interested in. But I just really like them. And I've got a fondness for Palace because we went to see them together as well. I'm pretty sure you interviewed them before the gig.
They were like kind of just an artist that I would have just played on the show that maybe just for me got a bit lost in the shuffle. But when you listen to them, I do remember you distinctly being like, "Oh no, I love Palace. I really like them."
Yeah, and I still like them now. And they come under that category of sort of. This has been nice for me because on my videos a lot of the time, I mean, I do show new music occasionally, but it's nice to sort of show off some of the sort of newer bands that, like King Gizzard. I've got a lot of records by them, but I rarely talk about them. And Palace and Parquet Courts, they're just bands that I don't really talk about. Not many people sort of in the vinyl community. There's a lot of people who the sort of 70s and 80s music is, but there are a lot of people who listen to new music as well. But like I say, it's been nice for me to show sort of newer artists that you've sort of influenced me into liking, and I wanted to show them both. Really, I could have picked out another dozen. So many bands that it's a little bit different now because when you were doing your radio show, I used to listen to it religiously every Monday evening, and it was such a good show. Obviously, I enjoyed it because my son were doing it, but it really did introduce me to a lot of new music. And it sounds like you miss it as well in a way because now you're not doing it. You're not sort of getting into as much new music because it is quite a bit of an effort, isn't it? Sometimes it's a lot easier to just listen to what you know than actually try and discover something new.
But I just remember it would always be like Sunday last minute. We'd be like, oh, like we need to like do our like session of trawling through the internet to try and find some tracks.
Yeah.
And then it was a lot of effort, but I just loved it, and it was nice having like yourself, having girlfriends at the time, and friends at uni and stuff.
Yeah.
Listening to it every now and again, like we had a few guests on, and I think it's something that now that I'm a teacher, it's kind of like it's a skill that I feel like really has stuck with me, like doing that, because when I started to become a teacher, some people had never performed, so to speak.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're doing a radio show, like when you're doing a YouTube video, you've kind of got to have a bit of a way of speaking. And I think that doing the radio show, it kind of really helped with that when, I wanted to apply that skill to, my career.
Yeah. I suppose like when you're in your band as well, that was, you're putting yourself out there, performing at some of the biggest venues in the Manchester area.
Oh yeah, playing the dizzy heights of West Street Live.
You played like is it the Roadhouse?
No, we played Night and Day Cafe.
You played the Roadhouse as well?
Oh, yeah. Roadhouse, yeah. Oh, I think it was Roadhouse that is now an Indian Takeaway.
Yeah, because Coldplay played there.
Like Elbow, have they played there?
There were 7 people there. And when you were there was about 80. So
no, I think...
where did it all go wrong? So people who are watching this video are predominantly collectors of records who are really sort of into vinyl. So give them an idea of sort of the size of your collection. How old are you? How old are you?
So I'm 27.
Yeah.
turning 28 this year.
Yeah.
And I'd say I've been collecting records. Probably my most prolific phase was between being 16 and probably 22, 23. So I would say for that kind of like near 10 years, I was buying records. Probably I'd buy at least 2 records a month minimum, maybe more. And I think working at HMV, having a bit of disposable income, that's what really was my main reason why I was able to collect my records so quickly. So during that time, I think what my collection now is probably, I don't know, 150 albums, something like that.
What about singles?
Probably about maybe 70. I've definitely got over 200 if you include singles. 250 maybe. On a Calax unit, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 cubes.
Maybe we could come up with a topic to do in the future if people enjoy this video and give it a thumbs up and
give it a thumbs up.
Yeah.
I look forward to reading the comments.
So have you enjoyed it, Alex? Doing this?
Yeah, of course I've enjoyed it. It's been nice to speak to you.
Nice one. So
all right then.
Anyway, like Alex said, if you've got any comments about this video, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.